Today's Parsha is Parsha Shmini, and we're going to dive into the subject matter, the eighth day, stepping beyond nature into the miraculous. Make sure to like and subscribe. I really hope that you will. If you're watching this on YouTube, like our channel, hit the alert button if you want to get alerted all of our new videos. Or if you want to go to NETIVonline.org, you can actually see everything that you want to know about NETIV right there. So let's get right into the study. Today, we delve into the concept that appears simple on the surface, that is the number 8, or more specifically, the 8th day, which that's what Shmini means. The Torah portion says, on the 8th day, Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. Some pivotal moment is getting ready to unfold, and we're going to find out its spiritual significance and what it really means. It's not just a number, as I said. It is a portal, a divine invitation to transcend the limits of nature and step into the miraculous. This has a very important message for those of us in the nations today, and we'll examine what this means. But first, we're going to get into the portion itself. Parsha Shmini, the word Shmini literally means eighth, but it represents so much more. It really is a turning point in human history, a spiritual reality, and a model for how we as individuals and as a collective can live infused with the purpose of divine energy and life and light. We talk often in this class and in our other classes, and Steve has as well in his classes, about elevating our consciousness and our energy, our inner light through the mitzvot, or through the good actions and good commandments that God has given us as the nations, as well as the Jewish people. Now let's examine some of the references to the eighth day. Obviously, right up front, the tabernacle has this eighth day. Now, we have talked about this for many years, that the eighth day is not another day of the week. Obviously, we know that. This stands outside of the week. It's very obvious it's pointing to something grander than we really understand, just on cursory reading of the text. So let's go back to 2449. Almost a year after the Exodus from Egypt, the 7 days leading up to the eighth were known as the 7 days of consecration. Each day, Moses would erect the temple, dismantle the tabernacle, performing the services himself, actually going through all of the micro details of spiritual service so that he would know that Aaron and the priest from that point forward is doing all of the proper things that they should do to erect the temple and to serve in the temple, and of course to bring the divine essence of God down. Then came the eighth day, Shemini. On this day, something really radical happened, and it's the official inauguration of the tabernacle, the day divine fire descended from heaven, the day the Shekinah of God's presence settled visibly among the people. This wasn't a transition in the ritual itself, but it was actually a transformation of the world itself, reflecting very much the idea of creation happening in 6 days, and on the seventh day, God rested. We'll touch back on that in a moment. Let's look at the symbolism of 7 verses 8. And these are found all through the Torah, because 7 represents nature. God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh, he rested. Now, we see this rhythm everywhere in Jewish life. On the seventh day of the week, 7 branches of the menorah, 7 sabbatical years, the color of the rainbow, 7 colors in a rainbow. But 8 is beyond beyond all of this, and it symbolized what lies outside and above nature and creation itself. The miraculous, the infinite, the divine breaking through the natural order. This is what Hashem intended and intends for mankind to do since the beginning, was to infuse creation with this divine breakthrough, to provide a breakthrough into this reality. If 7 is the world, 8 has to be the Holy One, blessed be He, God Himself. That period of time in which the presence of God will be visible to all mankind. I'm reminded of the verse that talks about that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that the Creator is the one true God. Why is circumcision, the Brit Milah, performed on the 8th day? Well, because the Jewish covenant with God, and actually our covenant with God through the Rainbow Covenant and through Noah, is supernal. It's not based on reason or logic, but on something eternal. A Jew's connection to God is not something that can be really explained. It is something that just simply is. It just exists. The 8th day tells us you and I are not bound to nature. We're not bound to something. We're bound to something far higher. This is why during this present time and many ages in the past, men and women of goodness and righteousness who are connected to the supernal, who are connected to the divine, are not often shaken by the 6 days or by physicality. We're elevating ourselves up to a higher level. Therefore, we're almost detached from our physical environment and engaged in such a way that we are tabernacles of Hashem on this earth right now. Shemini Atzeret, a festival just for the Jewish people. After 7 days of Sukkot, then sacrifices are offered on behalf of what? All 70 nations. All 70 nations of the world is a sacrifice done. Does this actually come as a surprise? Well, of course not. Shemini, 8, Atzeretz, the 8th day is a private celebration between God and the Jewish people, but one sacrifice, one people, one God, that also includes the righteous of the nation. And we have to remember that. Now, some would say, well, this particular high holy day and the Jewish people haven't anything to do with the nations. Well, I would beg to differ. If there are sacrifices given to the nations or on behalf of the nations, then it is also meant for us to understand and comprehend. Now, it seems to say that now that we have blessed the whole world, the Jewish people and the priest together, stay, and God says this to them, stay with me a little longer. Let's have a moment, just us. This is the intimacy of the 8th day, the transcendence of relationship which defies mathematics and reason. Hanukkah, here's another example, the 8th day of light. The fast forward to the time of the Maccabees, the oil of the temple should have lasted 1 day, but it burned for 8, not 7, because the miracle wasn't physical. It wasn't about the oil. It was about what it was pointing to, that there was a divine presence that was guiding the Jewish people at the time. It was a divine presence that provided the miracle of the oil. It was spiritual. It told the Jewish people then and tells us now, light is going to overcome darkness, not because of the strength or numbers, but because righteousness elevated the soul. Is this righteousness is connected to the 8th dimension where divine light resides and is supreme. We are all still connected to that supreme light. And sometimes it's hard for us who are trapped within this klipot of physicality for us to understand that we are spiritual beings living in a physical body, attempting to be humans in this world. But we are spiritual beings connected at all times to the divine. Let's look at redemption and the 8th day of Passover. We just have come through Passover. We're still at the tail end of it. Even Passover, which biblically lasts for 7 days, has an 8th day. And in the diaspora, especially, it's the 8th day. They don't have it in Israel itself. Now, this 8th day in Hasidic tradition is called Moshiach's Day, a Mashiach's Day. Why? Because just as the eighth day breaks through nature, redemption will usher in a world that transcends our current limitations. No war, no illnesses, no hatred. Could you imagine living in a world that is that heavenly, that divine? Only peace and unity and divine revelation will exist in that space. I saw several posts this last few days of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, most of them Christians in European nations, marching on behalf of Israel, marching on behalf of liberty, marching on behalf of peace and unity for their nation. And that gave me some tremendous inspiration to realize that even though there are many people that may not be where we're at in our understanding of text and Torah and spirituality, they are earnestly yearning for elevation. The nations really want peace and they want unity and they want divine revelation, but they don't know how to achieve that. Our responsibility as B'nai Noach and the responsibility of the Jewish people are to help provide them a lifeline to discover their intimate relationship with the Holy One, blessed be He. And we don't just wait for this day. The Jewish people have celebrated a concept called Seudat Mashiach, a meal where they taste the future, declare the readiness for it. Just like on Passover, they were ready with their matzah or their dough ready to put it in the oven quickly and to get out of town. We should be in this age preparing ourselves for the eighth day. We're going to talk about what that means and how that translates out in a moment. Remember Rabbi Yaakov Wobi's book, The Eighth Stringed Harp? Well, it's connected to infinity. I think that's the reason why that he wrote this book about the afterlife, that this soul doesn't die with the body. The body dies, it rots, it goes back to the earth, but our soul continues on forever. It's an eternal creation by God Himself. Psalm 12 opens up this way: for the conductor on the Shemitit of Song of David. The Shemitit, Rashi explains, is the eighth string harp which will be played in the days of redemption. I didn't know this until I studied it, that in the temple they use a 7-string harp to play their music. But in the future, on the eighth day, on that day in which redemption comes, the harp will be played with 8 strings. Why? Because music will no longer actually be bound by the rhythms and tones of this world. It will be infinite. For some reason, some way, music will transform our lives in a frequency that will help elevate us to a higher level of spirituality. We've heard and discovered that music was changed, or the what do you call it? The scale of music was changed to another frequency. I think it's 440, if I'm not mistaken, correct? 440. And all of our music has been written in that way, which they have now found out that frequency-wise is chaotic. And original frequencies were not 440. And they've discovered that they are like divine frequencies out there that resonate at perfect geometry and sacred geometry, which is just amazing. There was a video that was sent around. I think Lori sent it to me, and then maybe Steve got it. But it was talking about the cymatics, where they take a speaker and put it under really light sand, and it makes these geometric symbols. And they've discovered that the windows in great cathedrals throughout all of Europe and in many other places in the world that are not Christian cathedrals have these stained glass or stone geometric shapes that for centuries were sort of mystical and no one really understood what they meant. Some people thought, well, it's just beautiful art. Maybe that's what the artisans did. But the artisans that designed this understood something very ancient and very important. Living in the eighth day. This is where I want to get to. The world we live in is built on sevens. patterns, limitations, and the laws of nature. But the Jewish people, as well as all righteous souls, we are invited to live in the eighth day, to be bold, to rise above physicality, to live with purpose, with spirituality, with God's guidance. Every time we light a menorah or celebrate Shemini Etzeret, or reflect on the Brit Milah, we are declaring that I am not limited by the natural world. I'm part of the story that goes on beyond. And ultimately, we are preparing for the ultimate eighth day that's coming, the arrival of redemption, when all of creation will be uplifted and infused in infinite light. Baruch Hashem, may it come very soon. How do we live in that infinite light at this day? Well, we're doing it right now by studying Torah. By the very fact that we have studied this text of the eighth day, it's as if mentally, spiritually, we've elevated ourselves to be there on that eighth day, or to project ourselves to the future, to be at a time in which we see world peace and goodness in the world, and the light of Hashem shining throughout all of creation. I know that there is a famous quote, I think it's found within the Chabad community, that we need to act as if Mashiach is here now. We've always should act like redemption is here now. Sometimes we get into the mindset that says, well, one day I'll do this or that, or one day we will have this or that, or one day the light of Hashem will be in all the world. Well, the reality of the fact and the reality of the eighth day that is mentioned in this text tells us that you can infuse your physicality with this infinite light and the knowledge of God and the wisdom of God that comes from so many sources that confirm what the Torah says about our relationship with God and our understanding of the essence of God Himself. So may Hashem fill us all with the light and purpose of bringing the redemption in our age. So that concludes my little shiur, and we'll go on to discussion. Who would like to be next?